And this is where it will happen. A live look inside the Capitol Rotunda where the president-elect Donald J. Trump will be sworn in as the 47th president of the United States. 4 days ago, this was a much different story to be set outside in front of 250,000 onlookers here in our nation's capital. Due to weather, it has been moved indoors for a merely 600, but very powerful 600 if you do count who is indoors on this. Thanks so much for watching the special coverage of the inauguration of Donald J. Trump, coming to you live from the shadows, if you will, of the Capitol building right behind us. Good to see you. I'm Sean Kreisman.
And I'm Charlotte McBride. A great morning it has been. I'm alongside my co-host of Wake Up America, Mark Lauder, and of course, former Pennsylvania Senator Rick Santorum. Great to have you all here. Newsmax host Greta Van Susteren and Rob Schmidt will take over in just a little bit. It's been a little chilly out here, but the sun is shining. What a day in Washington, D.C.
It really has. It really has. We've seen so much already. And Mark, we were talking with you about this earlier. 8 years ago, you were part of the inauguration process and how this starts at the Blair House, the St. John's Episcopal Church, and now we're at the position where both are in the White House for tea, gift exchange. Walk us through this process for those just joining.
Yeah, so right now they're meeting. This we said earlier, this is a time accordion. So this is a greetings, this is customary, but it's basically nothing more than making sure that if they are running late, they cut the tea short. If they're running early, they expand it. They do have to be on the road from the White House down a little bit over a mile down here to the Capitol around 10:20, 10:30. The one thing that is not negotiable, he has to take the oath of office as president prior to noon, because at that point, Joe Biden, according to the Constitution, he's done.
That's right, and they will also have a gift exchange as well, I understand. So right now they are both sitting together, having tea inside the White House. Oh, to be a fly on the wall for that conversation.
I know what the gift was.
Okay.
The gift was pardons, because he gave pardons to people, and he gave pardons to Fauci, he gave pardons to Milley, he gave pardons to the J6. And you say, well, wait a minute, that's not a gift to Trump. And in fact, it is a gift to Trump, because now these people, because he didn't pardon them he pardoned them just for things he did in the past, not for the future. So now when they come before Congress or they're trying to pursue what really happened, they can't take the Fifth Amendment. They have to tell the truth, because if they don't, they can be prosecuted. So again, it's for if future crimes are not taken out of off the table. It's just what they did in the past. So now Trump has an opportunity, and the Congress has an opportunity to get to the bottom of a lot of this. And I think that's a great present for Donald Trump.
I just want to reference what we're seeing here on our screen here. Former speakers of the House, Newt Gingrich, John Boehner, and obviously Kevin McCarthy as well in this moment, as many continue to gather inside the Capitol.
I've got to ask, okay, Senator, so you obviously been through a few presidential inaugurations. You know from the moment that your candidate wins, your phone is lighting up with everyone in your district wanting tickets, wanting balls.
I still get people calling. Like somehow I have tickets,
so
right?
Now all of a sudden, all of those people, and there are what, 535 and eight of you, all of a sudden,
they want tickets to.
Now there's only 600.
That's right, and
a lot of upset.
And I've gotten requests for ball tickets, and anything that they can get to is really what they're concerned. But you're right, you got literally hundreds of thousands of people here with nothing to do right now, and it's I hate to say it, but it feels like it's not that bad out there. I mean, I understand.
Okay, Senator, you haven't been sitting out here.
Okay, all right. But I'm just saying.
Well,
but
4 a.m. walkover.
Yeah, but the sun is shining. That the sun can warm you up.
Right.
Look, I understand why they did it for health purposes, but I don't know. I think a lot of people who are out here in this right now are saying, hey, it's not that bad. We could have done
I'm
this.
even hearing some spouses, some of my friends who are still on the inside are saying their spouses now can no longer come. They, as members, may be able to come.
No,
or
absolutely.
officials, but now the spouse, the plus one, not so much anymore.
No.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we're watching that live, Capitol Hill right now. People starting to pile in because in less than 2 hours now, President-elect Donald J. Trump will be the president of the United States. And we were talking early, Senator, about his address that he will give here in about 2 hours. How important is this?
I'm just so excited because everything I'm hearing is that it's going to be upbeat, it's going to be positive, it's going to be unifying, which is 180 degrees from where it was 8 years ago. And I always believe, if you look at the MAGA coalition, it is a coalition of the vast majority of Americans. I mean, it's working people. It's people who who are still climbing the ladder. It's not the people at the very top. It's the folks that are the great center of America. And that should be a president who can bring us together, because it's not that hard. Most of us are in this coalition, and the fact that he's going to do that today, to me, is a very exciting step off for this presidency.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and talking about the swearing-in process again, and that to be held at 11:50 here as we take a live look inside here with those gathering in this moment. That will be done by Chief Justice John Roberts for the swearing-in, with Trump placing his hand using the Lincoln Bible and also the Bible that his mother gave him as well. Chief White House correspondent James Rosen is live for us on the North Lawn. As you hear the choppers behind us, I'm sure not too far away from James as well. James, good morning.
Sean and folks, good morning once again to you from the White House, where we have just witnessed a short time ago President-elect and Mrs. Trump arriving in their motorcade just from across the street, the Blair House, and where they were greeted on the North Portico, on the North Lawn of the White House, by President and Mrs. Biden. A historic moment for sure, and a reassuring one for Americans, because after all, when we saw President-elect Trump return to the White House to meet with President Biden in the Oval Office on the 13th of November following the results of the election night, it marked the first peaceful transfer of power here in the White House that Americans could savor in 8 years, and that is no small thing. We understand, as we were hearing from Mark Lauder a short time ago, that the tea is now underway. This is an event, as Mark was describing, that is conceived to provide filler time or to be shortened as necessary, depending on how the principals are running to time on their schedule. President-elect and Mrs. Trump have been a bit behind schedule today, so we can expect that the tea will accordingly be foreshortened. And then we're expecting, of course, to see all the events that we are looking forward to today. The signing of these executive orders once Mr. Trump is sworn in, his address as president following his swearing in, and then, of course, his appearance at the Capital One Arena as a kind of consolation prize for this whole event having been moved indoors. And all of this is rather unusual. Some of it is unprecedented. Obviously, this is the first time since the 19th century that we've seen a president return to office. But yesterday marked the first time we've ever seen a victory rally held by the president-elect on the eve of his swearing in. And we can expect that there will be more unusual twists and turns and great dramatic flourishes, because, after all, Donald Trump has always trafficked in those. Back to you guys.
All right, Chief White House correspondent James Rosen joining us outside the White House. A lot happening behind there, and a major shift and transition underway right now. Less than 2 hours away for President-elect Trump, to take office. Emma Reckenberg back with us.
It's just been incredible to see this unfold today. The history in the making. And isn't it exciting? Because we've been waiting for this moment. We've covered the campaign from the very beginning. The last-minute swap of the candidates stands out to me the most, because it's not only Republicans who weren't fans of Joe Biden this time around. It was also those Democrats who said he needed to go. He said he was just going to be a one-term transition president, and then he held on to power until he couldn't. And it was that debate when President Trump just kind of stood there and he said, you know what, I'm not even sure what he's saying. And we all were watching, and we couldn't believe what happened. And that's when the dominoes began to fall, and that's when they finally swapped him out.
Yeah, absolutely. That June 27th, the monumental day, that was the day of that debate. And America saw what was going on. America saw that the man that was in the White House really should not be in the White House anymore. But then the switch out to Kamala Harris, again, everything about this has been unprecedented.
All of the campaigns have been unprecedented. Every time you think you knew what was going to happen, something changed. But I believe it was the decision to debate. Back in when they announced that they were doing it, I was on one of the other networks on a Sunday show, and I said, this is a Hail Mary. They are desperate. They need to change the narrative, and they're basically going for broke, and they threw an interception. to use a football term.
Yeah, yeah, and the game kicks off around noon.
Yeah, there we go.
It's quite fitting. As you take a live look there, you can kind of see somewhat of an aerial shot, if you will, of the White House there with the motorcades lined up in this moment, where, again, the inauguration is happening indoors. It'll be inside the Capitol Rotunda, where many are already gathered. We did see the Trump family already arrive on location and all set for that. Again, just an hour and 49 minutes away from President Biden out of office and President Trump back in. The big discussion here is what they're calling the shock and awe, if you will, of executive orders that are coming.
Yes.
Some reporting up to 200 when you really break it all down. Again, thanks so much for tuning in for this coverage. We do appreciate that. I'm John Kreisman, along with Charlotte McBride, Emma Reckenberg, and Mark Lauder. Our coverage of the inauguration of President Donald J. Trump continues with Rob Schmidt and Greta Van Susteren on the other side of this break. Stay with us. We'll be right back here on News.
Welcome back to Newsmax's special coverage of the inauguration of the 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. And now you can see the lawmakers and all of the special guests arriving at the United States Capitol, now just a little more than an hour away from Donald Trump taking office yet again as the next president of the United States. Just under 2 hours to go until that happens. Meanwhile, across town, here at the Capital One Arena, home to the NBA basketball franchise here in Washington, D.C., and the Washington Wizards, of course, another gathering is happening. You've got the inauguration. The plans have changed over this weekend. So rather than having the traditional scene on the National Mall, about 20,000 or so folks have gathered inside this arena, and they're expecting Donald Trump, now President Donald Trump, in a couple hours to arrive here later this afternoon. And now we did see the president-elect arriving at the White House just a short while ago, joined by Melania Trump, the soon-to-be First Lady, former and soon-to-be First Lady, greeting the current President of the United States and current First Lady, at least for a couple more hours. Jill Biden greeting Donald Trump and Melania. That gift exchange there. There was an audible cheer here at Capital One Arena when we saw Donald Trump get out of that limousine. And it is a changing of the guard moment for sure. Now just a couple hours away. Inside Capital One Arena, most notably, I've obviously been on the campaign trail for much of the last year, and you see a lot of familiar faces here. You see Uncle Sam, a gentleman who has dressed like Uncle Sam and has attended just about every Trump rally, and who dresses as a brick wall. He's called Mr. Wall. He's become an internet sensation. Donald Trump calls him out at every rally. Also calls out a series of about a dozen or so housewives from North Carolina. He asks about their husbands. I can't believe your husbands are allowing you to go to all these rallies. Yesterday, at a rally here at Capital One, Donald Trump called out those ladies and said, "Thank you. You've been with me for 150 or so rallies. Maybe you have one more in you." Well, we do have one more rally left to go here in Washington, D.C. Donald Trump will address this crowd later this afternoon, and we'll have that complete coverage for you right here on Newsmax. So, big day. Right? This is what we've been waiting for, several years in the waiting, and Donald Trump about to become the 47th President of the United States. Coverage continues. It's this special coverage of the inauguration of the 47th President of the United States. We're going to pick up this special coverage with Rob Schmidt and Greta Van Susteren. It's an all-star lineup on an all-star day, and we have John Huddy right now that we're going to throw it on over to. John, take it away.
Yeah, Mike, well, thanks. Yeah, I'm standing here on the riser in Lafayette Park. Behind me, just below me, is Pennsylvania Avenue. You have the grandstands, what would have been the parade route here, and then the north lawn of the White House. And I'm watching an intense amount of activity as the U.S. Secret Service has lined up the presidential motorcade. We've seen the presidential motorcade, the Beast, some of the other vehicles heading into the parking area, the driveway of the North Lawn, getting ready for outgoing President Biden and incoming President Trump to come out of the White House. Remember, they had the service at St. John's Episcopal Church earlier this morning. The Trumps there, soon-to-be President Trump, First Lady, and then also soon-to-be Vice President J.D. Vance, his wife, along with members of their family, the Trump family, and other senior officials. Also, tech giants, Bezos, Zuckerberg, were in attendance, from what I'm told, as well. Once that ended and that service was put on. It was about 30 minutes. It was a brief service. That has been going on. The tradition was started by FDR in 1933. It's been going on since then. After that, then we saw a lot of movement. We saw Vice President Harris's motorcade go onto the White House grounds. She greeted J.D. Vance there, and then ultimately incoming President Trump met President Biden on the lawn. They had tea there, and then ultimately they'll go to the Capitol, as Mike was just talking about. So what we've been seeing on Pennsylvania Avenue, the U.S. Secret Service getting the motorcade ready, basically coordinating all the vehicles. We see staff vehicles with the sticker saying Staff 47, of course, the staff of the incoming 47th President of the United States. We've seen some of the guys waxing some of the motorcade vehicles as well. Again, moving into the lawn, we've seen members of the press corps, the White House press pool, also coming out, getting into vehicles, White House press photographers as well. So there is a ton of movement on Pennsylvania Avenue. Again, as I'm watching a heavy contingent of law enforcement, local, state, federal law enforcement as well, as this motorcade is soon to be on the move here. In an extraordinary day. You know, obviously the schedule has changed. It's been very dynamic. It's been fluid, literally to this point, on an incredibly historic and extraordinary day. Back to you.
You are looking live right now at the center of the free world. The nation's U.S. Capitol is bustling this morning as we witness the peaceful transition of power in Washington. Thanks for watching special coverage, the inauguration of Donald J. Trump, coming to you live from the shadows of the Capitol building. I'm Greta Van Susteren, host of The Record here on Newsmax.
Good to see you, Greta.
Nice to see you, Rob.
I'm Rob Schmidt, host of Rob Schmidt Tonight. Greta and I are going to be with you for the next several hours. We're going to watch our 47th president take the oath of office. The prompter says it's a frigid day. It's not as cold as we thought it was going to be. It's cold. I mean, it's cold, but it's like
It's going to get colder as we sit here longer.
We've seen worse. We live on the East Coast, right? Most of today's ceremonies are moving inside the Capitol Rotunda, as you're seeing here in the live pictures. For the first time since Ronald Reagan's inauguration, way back in 1985, so about 40 years ago now. Oddly enough, Reagan also holds the record for the warmest inauguration in 1981. We'll talk more about that in a climate change segment. But we're seeing the pictures on the screen. And if we could take that live here, if we could, yeah.
Talk is Melania's trending, obviously, on social media, just her fashion style, something that I think everyone has taken note with her very stunning outfit and hat, which I think has made a very big fashion statement.
It'll be interesting to see. She didn't make the cover of Vogue.
That is true.
The only first lady in the first term, which everyone saw as a snub of the Trump administration. Let's see if this year, with all the tech people have come up.
Big tech is melted. I don't think big fashion's going to melt.
I don't think they will.
I could be wrong.
We'll see if she shows up on Vogue's cover.
That's Anna Wintour, right?
But
I don't know.
But this is the first time that Melania Trump and Jill Biden have met. Remember, Mrs. Biden did invite, or Dr. Biden did invite Melania to come to the White House. She chose not to meet ahead of time. So having the tea together, both couples, basically the first time that they've had an encounter in quite some time.
I have sympathy for these first ladies going back both parties, because every day they wake up, first of all, they don't get paid. Secondly, is that every day they wake up and their husbands are getting trashed in media by all of us and by their political opponents. And I think it's fair to get a little raw for these first ladies, whether it's Melania Obama in Hawaii today, or Michelle Obama, or Melania not showing up for things. I get it.
I'll take a little umbrage of that, because if you, in the sense that, unlike every other politician's spouse, like mine, they at least have a channel to push back. Most spouses of all are
at the White House. We saw J.D. Vance and his wife arrive, and they were greeted, of course, by Kamala Harris and her husband, Doug. And now we are expecting Donald Trump to arrive and be greeted by the Bidens, where they will have tea for an undisclosed amount of time.
Yeah, we're watching a little bit of this unfold in this moment here. Earlier, we saw, again, the Vice President Harris. We saw Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, their spouses arrive for tea. Again, the president as well. The big question is, How long is this going to last? We don't know that. What will be discussed, we do not know that. This is that moment brought to you moments ago. If you did miss that, Senator Rick Santorum is on set with us now, who's been watching a lot of this. There's a lot of things we don't know, but I think we're learning that we do know what we can hear from President Trump later on today.
Yeah, everything that's being reported is that it's going to be a much more optimistic speech. If you remember 8 years ago, I was actually taken back. I mean, he was talking about the American carnage, and it was this dark, foreboding kind of speech.
Right.
And I think he's taken a completely different approach this time. I think almost like Morning America again, make America great. And if you really think about what his theme is to make America great. And I think, unlike 4 years ago, I don't think he was really ready. I mean, I don't mean to say that. I mean, he had a good 4 years, but he wasn't really ready. This time he's ready. He's going to have hundreds of executive orders and other types of things, and he's ready for, I think, an optimistic and very powerful start to this administration.
How important is this address for him? Because he said that he wants to make it about unity, and he's a president for all people, not just those who voted for him.
I think it's incredibly important. I think every inaugural sets a tone for an administration. And then really the tone he set 8 years ago was sort of a tough, almost like I said, foreboding tone. And his tone this time is really going to be, he's more popular now than he was 8 years ago. He had a commanding win. He had a landslide victory. And I think he feels that. He feels that the American public's behind him. They're supporting him. You've already seen changes in the culture. The end of this wokeness, not end, I mean, it's still hanging around, but there's been a turn in the culture, again, because of this election. And I just think he feels like he has much more support, and he has the confidence of the American people behind him. Yeah. And I think he's going to try to be that leader, not on just of one party, which is what Joe Biden and Barack Obama have been doing for the last 12 years, but he's going to try to bring America together. It's really exciting.
Yeah, exciting to hear the Trump family arriving on Capitol Hill. Remember, this all will be indoors for the inauguration, for 600 to be in attendance. Not the 250,000 that we saw outside, but it is interesting to note that many did stick around to see if they could get in the Capital One Arena, where what would be the parade would happen in there, and it is set for the president to visit the Capital One Arena there in D.C. after being sworn in and giving the inaugural address, which we were just speaking about. With us now is Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson joining us as we discuss and count down just a couple of hours away, Senator Johnson, for President Trump to be sworn in office once again. Can you talk to us about the feeling of today, the feeling of optimism, and what you're looking forward to, and what is top of mind for you?
Well, good morning. This is a very good morning for America. I agree with Senator Santorum. I think President Trump, certainly in his meetings with the senators, have been talking about how we not only make America great again, but how we build on it, how we build it back up. And so that is going to be, I think, very optimistic. And I also agree he's coming into office now with far more experience, certainly wary of how the deep state, actors in the deep state undermine and sabotage his first administration. I don't think he's going to let that happen again, or he's certainly going to be guarded to make sure it doesn't happen again. I think our job is to make sure we confirm his cabinet secretaries, his undersecretaries, so they can get to work. But even before we do that, it takes some time in the Senate. I'm sure he'll be putting people in an acting position to try and get control over the deep state and start fulfilling those promises he made during the campaign that the American people support.
Yeah, and you talk about those promises that he made during that campaign, and now we're hearing that he could be signing 200 executive orders here on day one. He said it will be a historic first week back in the White House. What do you make of that, Senator?
Well, let's face it, both in 2016 and 2024, his primary promise was to secure the border. Unfortunately, we had 4 years intervening there where President Biden opened it up and created this clear and present danger, so that'll be a primary focus. Unleashing American energy, becoming energy independent again, helping use our God-given resources to make this country great again. Strengthening America so that our adversaries are put back in their boxes. Again, the Biden administration has created so many enormous messes we got a lot of work ahead of us. From my standpoint, we have to make sure that we do not have an automatic massive tax increase in 2026. We need to provide President Trump those resources to secure the border, and we have to bring total government spending down to some pre-pandemic baseline. I've written about that. I've laid out a couple options. Senator Graham, chairman of the Budget Committee, has embraced, I think, other people's as well. So we have to bring down the cost of government. I don't think anybody who voted for President Trump expected we would remain spending at Biden's levels.
Hey, Ron, Rick Santorum here. Just question as to how many nominations you think you'll be able to get done, not just today, but maybe in the next couple of days, to actually start getting to work and to go into get to work and get ready. Do you anticipate anybody being held up on the floor by the Democrats?
Well, I don't expect the Democrats are going to cooperate with us. So I think we held a record number of confirmation hearings last week. So we're ready. I know of Kristi Noem, we're going to vote out of committee here at 5:30. Again, Rick, we have to go through certain procedural things. But when Harry Reid used the nuclear option, it certainly speeds the nomination process, and they can't hold anybody up with a filibuster. So, we're going to proceed as quickly as possible. We'll work Fridays, we'll work weekends. We'll do whatever it takes to make sure that President Trump has the staff, the people in his administration that he needs to honor those and fulfill those promises.
Yeah, Senator Johnson, we expected a lot of the news will be on the pomp and circumstance of the inauguration, obviously, and for the president-elect again to become president, the 47th president of the United States. The top story would have been perhaps the weather, perhaps the executive orders, but indeed it was these preemptive pardons issued by President Biden in the final hours as commander-in-chief for notable figures like Dr. Anthony Fauci, General Mark Milley, Congresswoman Liz Cheney, and other members of the J6 Select Committee. Care to react to that?
Well, I guess I'm just wondering, what crimes, what criminal activity was President Biden concerned that they needed pardons for? And, these pardons are going to be a double-edged sword. I mean, there are some loose ends we have to tie up here in terms of what happened during COVID, what happened in the January 6th committee. These individuals no longer have Fifth Amendment protections. They're going to have to come and testify fully and honestly, or they'll be subject to contempt of Congress charges or perjury. So, again, these pardons are a double-edged sword for them, and it just, again, if I were them, I wouldn't have wanted a pardon because it just implies that they committed crimes which they may have done.
Senator Ron Johnson joining us. We do appreciate that, sir. It's good to see you. Thank you for your time.
Have a great day.